Hi everybody, it's Tim with Engadget and welcome to the new BlackBerry Bold. This is the 9930 model that will be appearing on Verizon. And if you're looking at it from this perspective anyway, it doesn't really look that different than the previous Bold models. In fact, it looks pretty much identical. It's not until you turn it around and look at it from some different angles that things start to look a little bit different. But still, we'll start at the front because this is, of course, the most important part. Up front, we have a 2.8-inch LCD, which is actually running in VGA resolution that may sound a little bit disappointing, but given the limited size here, the pixel density is actually quite high. And we found the screen to be very good indeed. It's bright enough for easy visibility even in direct sunlight, and the contrast of it, if it will stay on, is actually very good even at extreme viewing angles. You don't lose contrast, so we're quite impressed by the screen. We just wish there was a little bit more of it. Beneath the screen we have the 4 action buttons here, of course, but unlike previous models, this is one integrated panel, and you can basically just push in on any of these that you want to enable these buttons. And in the middle, rather than the optical, or the roller ball rather, I should say, there's an optical trackpad, which as you can see, you can scroll your thumb around and go from icon to icon, and then click in the middle to select. On the bottom, of course, is perhaps the best feature of the phone, which is this large QWERTY keyboard. This is a little bit bigger than the keyboard on the Bold, but not drastically different, and that is a good thing. This is one of the best QWERTY keyboards on any smartphone to date. The way the keys are shaped, they kind of come out and reach out for your thumbs. It's designed for two-handed typing, or two-thumb typing, I should say. But it is a very good typing experience, and certainly among the best, if not, indeed, the best. Let's take a quick tour around the device. On the right side here, we have a volume rocker with a mute button in the middle. On the bottom is the action button, which you can program to do just about whatever you like. Bottom, not a whole lot going on here. Left side, micro SD port and a 3.5mm headphone jack. And then up top is the lock button. Now turn around back and you can see this lovely bit of a carbon fiber-esque display, not too dissimilar from the Motorola Atrix. On top we have a 5-megapixel camera, and there's an LED flash on the side. Now we can pop this open and remove this to show the new 1200 mAh that is battery, which is used on all 3 of the new BlackBerry devices that are launching at the same time. Situated beneath here is a SIM card, which will give you global roaming capability. And up here you can slot in up to a 32GB micro SD card. This phone has 8GB of storage built in, and with 32GB, of course, you can have a grand total of 40GB. However, even if you do that, you will be limited to only 189 megabytes of storage for your applications. This is a system limitation, and while BlackBerry applications tend to be fairly small, that it's still a pretty limited amount of storage for your apps. Especially if App World takes off and becomes really popular, you're probably going to find yourself wanting more than about 200 megs of storage. Thankfully, apps can get around that by having some storage in local storage and only some of it in that 189 megabyte window, but still it's a little bit disappointing. Now let's take you for a quick tour around OS 7. This is the latest release of the operating system, which previously was known as 6.1. And because it was a previous point release, you shouldn't really expect anything too shocking in here. In fact, things should look indeed very familiar. But there is a new HTML5 browser which has been added. And let's take that for a quick spin. Now, rather unfortunately, it does by default load up the WAP display on most websites, but if you configure things correctly, you can get to the actual full browser experience here. And as you can see, that loaded pretty quickly. We are on Wi-Fi at the moment. And pinch to zoom does work. Of course, pinching to zoom on a 2.8-inch display is a little bit trickier than on a full widescreen, but still works quite well. As you can see, we've got bouncing going on. And there's a little bit of redrawing as you scroll, but things are quite responsive, certainly much more so than in previous BlackBerry models. I'll take a look at one of the premier titles that RIM has made a big point of talking about, which is this roller coaster game, which exists seemingly only to show you that this phone can indeed do 3D. There's really not much gameplay to be had here. It is, after all, a roller coaster, and there's not a lot to do when riding a roller coaster. But it does show, indeed, that this phone can do 3D graphics. And here we are. This is all being rendered in real time. And it's quite exciting, as you can see. This is showing off the new OpenGL 2.0 ES support that is added to the device. And we can play it if you like to. Basically, the point here is to ride a roller coaster. As you tilt the phone to the right, you go faster. Tilt it to the left, you go slower. And that is the extent of the gameplay of this title. Graphics are okay, certainly not going to beat the cream of the crop on the iPhone or even on Android at this point, but it does show the capabilities of the phone if game developers are looking to make 3D titles on BlackBerry OS 7. Indeed, it is a possibility, but with a whole new operating system on the way, QNX based, we have to wonder just why somebody would want to make a significant investment in this version of the operating system. Oops, I seem to have crashed. So again, this is the BlackBerry Bold 9930 on Verizon now, and overall we quite like the hardware, but the software unfortunately is a bit disappointing. We can't help shaking the feeling that this is just kind of an old operating system that at this point needs to be put out to pasture. And we hope the QNX on the phone will be much nicer than what we're experiencing here, but unfortunately we're going to have to wait a couple of months at least before we get our first glimpse of QNX on the phone. So I'm Tim with Engadget, and this has been the BlackBerry Bold 9930. Pixel density.